All right, welcome everybody. Another session we're going to have here today. So I am wondering here, who has already been using AI in their business? I am just curious, who has already been using AI in your business and what are you using it for? Let's see what the chat says here. What are you using it for and what are you using it is the question. Today's going to be a great intro to AI. Um, yeah, a couple of you already have no, 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 ideas. Okay, cool. Well, let's go into that. Yeah, ChatGPT is AI. The problem is with AI, when we all, not even that long ago, we didn't have such tools. But, AI has been around a long time, and it's just got another name. And the thing is, with that, it sounds like daunting or weird or something like that. I was talking to my mom the other day, who's 84, and I said, Mom, this AI stuff has been around a long time. And she was listening to me, and I said, do you remember when movies first started getting CGI, right? You know, computer generated imaging, right? Like back in the old days, when they started adding in CGI. I said, you would see like aliens coming in or dinosaurs or flames or something like that. But we are that's CGI, mom. That's what they were doing, but now they call it AI. Really, it's a program, right? It's a program that has some learning potential and memory potential, and it's it's a help. But there's a lot of people using it, and I see it. I see it being used, and it's one of those things. I'm just looking at the chat. There's a lot of comments about it. Um, it's being used, but I think 99% of the time it's not being used well, and I'm going to get into that today. Today's going to be a great like 101 on especially ChatGPT, which is the most common one that everybody's using for writing. And I've got some basic frameworks that I'm going to help you with and understanding some of this. There's more that we can do with this, but I think this is going to be a great first thing. Even if you've been using it for a little while, um, there's one of the things that I've done with my own clients is we've walked them through a process of creating their own brand voice so you've got your own GPT, because if you don't train it properly, it will never sound really like you. And it will store information. It definitely will, but after so long, it asks you to um, delete the memory, and then in order to um, keep the memory like open, it forgets stuff as well. So like if we have a trained brand voice, which we're not going to do here, we don't have time. It takes hours to do this. But to train your own GPT and your own brand voice is really what you want to do. So that is got all of your information, all your business information, everything like that. But I want to get into some basic uses to help you out, just because it's, you know, it's definitely something that we need to be aware of. And it's just getting, there's so many tools there. Hold on a second. I don't know what's going on with my Zoom here. There we go. Oh, somebody's trying to pop in here. Okay, there we go. Somebody's here and popping in. All right. So there's a lot of writers out there, like a lot of like GPTs, um, LLM, learn language models, a lot of them. There's Claude. That's another really popular one. People are using Grok. You can use Llama. You can use Gemini. I mean, there's a lot of different ones. This one is the one that most people are using, but you can, what I'm going to share with you, you can use for most of them, because they all have, different, I guess you'd say, different algorithms. But the thing is that they all kind of pull their information from the same place originally, and then they learn, and the algorithm does its thing. So you might like, say, Claude better as a writer than ChatGPT. Claude is more warm in tone, in my opinion, a little more. Uh, I don't know. I just feel like it's rounder. I don't know if that makes any sense. And then Grok is very like edgy, and it's kind of got its own attitude, and ChatGPT, it's really good, but it can be a little sterile, and flat. And that's the problem with using AI for writing, is you really have to engineer in the depth of your copy. You've got to go back in and add your own stories, things like that. Because if you don't, it's just going to be flat and there's no character to it. I mean, think about it as writing with an encyclopedia, and you can go back and tell it, add in stories, add in depth of copy, soften the tone, and it can get pretty good. But I still have to go back and rewrite anywhere from 10 to 50%, depending on what I'm writing. So just be aware of that. I just always like to talk about it, because I would tell you, very, very rarely would you ever grab something that's been given to you from one of the AI sources and use it without any edits as an ad. You just, it's flat, and or it's got these, issues, that I'm talking about. And I know people that do, and you can test it, but there's a pattern and a cadence in which these things write, and I could pick it up, I can see. And I want to go back and make sure that, that is not, not showing there, because a lot of times it gets really bulleted, and yeah. So we'll get into some of this today, but I really want to just do a 101, just because so many people are in there using and plinking around on the keyboard that they don't really know what they're doing, and it will give you stuff back. Like 100%, it will give you something back when you type in there. Oops, more people are coming in. It will definitely want, to like give you something. You ask it something, yeah, and it will lie. Yeah, Jackie. Most people don't know that either. It'll make stuff up, like totally make it up. And so you've got to be really mindful of that. So I just want, like, you've got to check it, you got to read your stuff, it's interesting. But I do think it's a fabulous tool that we can use for our businesses and whatever. But one thing that I found that's really crazy, I don't know if you've heard this as well, but the top two uses of ChatGPT, one is, of course, writing. The second one is therapy, which is, in my opinion, completely terrifying. Like, people are using ChatGPT as their therapist. It's like right there is one of the top uses of ChatGPT. I was like, I'm gonna see if I can find it. There's a graph, and I'm like, oh my gosh, therapy was right there at the top. It's like, oh my God, this is let's see, this is just regular programs. I'm looking, I'm gonna say the average person. Obviously, computer people and things like that are gonna use it um for their own, like, obviously business. Here we go. Oh, you ready? I'm just like, what? I'm hope you're sitting down. Screen is a little bit big. Oh man, right here. Make this smaller. Why does this keep dump here? There we go. Fits better. So in 2024 versus 2025, the number one, it moved. 24, it was idea generation and writing, words and editing resumes and stuff like that. This year, it's therapy and companionship is the number one use of AI. Like, what? I'm sorry. Um, what? That's my feeling on that. What? Because it will literally reflect you. So that is, I need a new best friend, Ruth. I know. Yeah, I think it's great. I think, where did I just see it? Jackie's I'm using it to code and learn software. Absolutely. That's a really cool way to do it. You can ask it to show me or help me do this. It will actually do all that for you. It's really, really cool. I have a friend who created a sales and closing AI, and he did it through asking and did it. And he's got this incredible platform now where he listens to sales calls and now he's building agents, and it's amazing what my friend Steve is doing. But anyways, I just want you to know this, just to be aware. I mean, look, it's like, wow. But that's not what we're doing today. I want to give you the 101 with how to use it, especially for writing. And when we're talking about ads, this can bleed over into emails, your texts, things like that. But it's really important, like I said, when we are writing, we cannot take what it gives us verbatim out of the out of, in the response as something we copy and paste and don't edit. Okay, so this is going to be your basic intro if you haven't done it before. And that's the pro like I've already mentioned, most people they're doing it like wrong. Um, the thing is that you have to realize that the AI is giving you something back based on what you put in, but you've got to prompt it properly. And I've even seen like AI ad writers and things like that. They're still missing the mark, right? So a lot of people will come in and they'll go to ChatGPT and they'll sit down and they're like, I can write an ad, like you could put in some famous copywriter like Dan Kennedy or whatever, and it's going to come back. But you have to realize I just did a big presentation slide deck, and the first times like the first couple times I tried to use it, it was the output was terrible. And as I really, started using it and then really engineering the outputs and asking for different things in the flow, and it came out really good. So it's the same with this. We've got to understand, our ad anatomy. You've got the hook, you've got the body, the story, you've got the call to action, you've got different types of copy as far as like there's sarcastic, short storytelling. You've got to have your different frameworks, which I'm going to give you four of those frameworks today. And these are all frameworks and stuff that has nothing to do with AI. This is about learning. If you want to be a great user of AI for writing ads, you've got to study copywriting. Like go study like the books and read copy and study ads that are really good and use them in a train your GPT, but also train yourself. It's really important. So, the problem is not the platform. The platform is like a blank slate, right? And it's waiting for you. But the problem is what I see, and I see them when my clients send in their ads, is that they say, well, they're not converting or they're not getting the right people, or you might be getting great results, but they're not like people that are responding might be just a bunch of brokies or something like that. And I've seen it, and I've done it myself. I'll take even ads. And one thing I do like to do is I like to hand write an ad myself. And then I'll have ChatGPT make it in shorter versions. So if I've got a 300 word ad, I'll say make this ad into 200 word ad, 150 word ad, and in a 100 word ad, and I'll shrink it down and test different lengths of the ad. So, it's not the platform, like I said, it's what we're putting into it, right? Or you could take an ad and put it in there and say, you write it yourself and just say smooth out the copy, make sure everything is logical and that it flows appropriately. And one of my favorite prompts is do not rewrite this. From like it'll get in there and start summarizing and interpreting and you don't know what comes out. Like I will say do not rewrite this, but smooth out the copy, make sure everything is logical. And sometimes you can even ask it to say, make suggestions before you rewrite it. That's a really big one. I'll put it in there and I'll say, look, analyze this ad that's going to go on Facebook, and this is the ideal avatar, and I tell them the avatar, and analyze this ad for whatever I want it to be analyzed for, right? It's, maybe this ad was underperforming and it was getting people that were, not serious or whatever. Analyze this ad and give me the suggestions. And you can have it do that without it rewriting, and it will help you a lot, in its own way. Oh my God, no M dashes. And I think I've said worse things to ChatGPT than for heaven's sake. Here's a few of my pet peeves with ChatGPT. M dashes, and there's actually one on this screen right now, right here, the double dash. The starting the sentences with the word and. Does it not know proper grammar? No, starting with and then my favorite is the word quietly. It'll say people are quietly using blah blah blah, and I'm like, we don't use that word quietly. It's like ah. So and here's the thing, and this goes back to, it's not AI's fault, right? Because we're using a program. I mean, think about it. Like, remember back in the day, we called them computer programs. Now they're called apps, right? And now any computer program, quote, app that has any type of like learned language, is like AI now, right? And so now we can use AI with everything. And it's been there. Now it's really just become showcased at the front. So, but it's really powerful. And that's the main thing to remember, is that what you put in is what you're going to get out, right? So, this is what some of the top things that I like to do with the platform. Um, I love with helping with writer's block. I'll sit down and say, well, I did it the other day. I said, give me 20 ideas. Yeah, here's my, like, it knows my client now, but if I didn't know, like, if I was brand new sitting down, you give it your history and you say, these are my ideal clients, these are my current clients, these are the people I'm like looking to attract. What would be like 20 topics for engaging reels, to film, right? Or, you can have it do the research on viral ads or videos, and, you can do that research yourself and then load it in and just say, give me these ideas. What are some topics? And I always ask for like double or triple the amount. Like, because I go through, and even if I'm writing a headline, and sometimes you'll get done with the ad and you're like, all right, my brain, like, okay, I need some angles of the ad. And sometimes I don't even, I very rarely will ever take the verbatim, even headline that it gives me. I'll rewrite it, or I'll put a couple of them together that I really like. But it really helps with that writer's block. Or if you're sitting down and saying, okay, you could tell it, I'm having writer's block. I got to write an ad about this, and that. So act like a, direct response copywriter and help me come up with ideas for an ad that will attract people that are this kind of person to this kind of product, blah, blah, blah. So it can help give you those ideas. I think that's a really great way. And like Ruth said, she's done that. She's already done that with her stuff. The other thing is, like I mentioned this just a little bit, you can have it generate 5 to 10 high quality variations in minutes, of course. Like I said, I'll put in my current ads, even my winning ads, and I'll just say, tweak this slightly. this ad is attracting this kind of person. I would like to have a little bit different and, give me variations of this current winning ad. So I love that feature. I really do. I love the variation feature where I can be like, make it shorter, make it longer. Sometimes I'd be like, let's rewrite the hook. Or maybe, we got to improve click-through rates. How can I improve the call to action? So like that is extremely powerful. Um, so you can also speed up your campaign creation, getting the whole thing from start to finish, done. Because you when I teach people how to write ads and do their marketing, I mean, we go from the first concept of who are you marketing to, all the way to the ad in a campaign is only 13% of what makes it work. So you've got all these pieces, and most people think, oh, I'm just going to sit down and write an ad and stick it in Facebook, and then they wonder why they don't get a result. The ad is like 13%. We've got to prep appropriately. We have to really dial in the voice and the result that we want. Then we write ads, but then we've got to do imaging. We've got to do the send to, we've got to do the follow ups, multi channel follow ups. Then we've got what happens once they respond, right? You've got that piece of it. Like you got to be prepared for that. And then being able to close or handle objections. And then if they don't buy right away, you've got to have an indoctrination process so that they do. You got to put them in the incubator. So that's the whole campaign. That's not the ad. The ad is like, a small piece of it, but it's like the front beacon that pulls people in. It's important, but it doesn't do everything. You've got to have all this other stuff. So it's, it can help you with those holes in the campaign process. Also, of course, we talked about, it's getting ideas. I mean, it can give you more ideas than you care to even imagine. So I will warn you if you are a serial entrepreneur, or somebody who gets off track and sidetracked easily or have ADD tendencies, be very careful with that inside of ChatGPT. So, yeah, so these are, some of the basic things that we're going to go over. So I'm going to talk about a couple don'ts and a couple do's. So don't treat it, like I said, like a magic wizard. Don't take it, verbatim what's out there and use it. And like Jackie said, sometimes it doesn't have accurate information in there. Like it can be, excuse me, I got a tickle. It can lie. So we got to be aware of that. And get something to drink here. My throat. I didn't drink any of my water yet this morning, but I did brush my teeth. So I gotta get little drinky drink. Ooh, a little fizz for the morning. So and 99% of people using ChatGPT sit down and say, I want to write an ad. Write me an ad about natural health or write me an ad for whatever. And it doesn't work. That this is the write me an ad is like I don't you guys don't need to incriminate yourself, but I think we've all done it, especially when we're brand new. We sit down and we're like, write me an ad about blah blah blah, and, and it comes out like a pile of junk. And the one thing that's important is to constantly feed good ads to it. That helps. Um, but when you give it with zero context, it's garbage in, garbage out. So let me write here, get my little drawing thing. So things that are really important to help it, and reasons why it fails is it doesn't know who your audience is, so you need to tell it your audience. It doesn't know your brand voice or positioning, and I have the brand voice. I have a brand voice training that I did, and I with my mastermind clients, and it's a couple hour process. I've been thinking about maybe I've got some things that I'm working on, really big things I'm working on, which you guys will find out like in the next week. You will keep your eye on your emails. I'm hoping to launch it this week, a program that a lot of people are going to be very excited about. But I occasionally want to have these little workshops to help people walk them through doing their brand voice training. It takes a couple hours, and there is a ton of stuff you got to do in order to do it. Um, you've got to identify your unique selling position, your USP, and then most of what's going to give you is kind of middle of the road junk. So, like you wouldn't like this example here is like you wouldn't walk up to a copywriter and say, just write me an ad. They'll be like, how, what? Like, what are you even doing? So we have to, it's the same thing. We have the same kind of situation with this where we have to, give it the context. So, oops, number two is don't copy and paste what it gives you. And I've already mentioned this because you may read it and think it looks pretty good. Oh, it looks pretty good. But you have to really like imagine it looking in your feed. And I mean, there's a lot of bad ads in the Facebook feed. I look every day and I'm like, what is happening? I'm like going through my phone. I'm like, even these bigger companies, I'm like, these are the worst ads ever. And here's the thing, a lot of the creative, the words are not exactly doing all the heavy lifting now. It's in the image or in the video. And I'm not even going down the rabbit hole with AI generated video right now. I'm just talking about the words here. So, some of the issues that we see the most, it's too long and too rambly. It will like, I like, this is exactly true. AI loves to be thorough. And like it gave me back something the other day, and it was this long, rambly, I can't even tell you. It was like this long. I'm like, that was terrible. I'll tell it. I'm like, that was terrible. Like, would you get to the point, And yeah, so we want it, give it context. Like when I tell it to write headlines, I'm like 7-word headlines, 6-word headlines. Sometimes it gets a little rambly even on 7 or 200 words, when I'm writing the ad, I'm like 200 words, 150 words, however long I want it to be. So length is one thing. It's also very vague, and most of the time you don't even realize it's vague. Like it's terrible. And you think and you read it, and the problem is you read it and you're putting your own context into the interpretation, but it's so vague that when somebody is seeing it out in the ethers, in the reality of the world, that's why they're not going to respond. So there's that. Also, Facebook doesn't know ad policy as well as you may know it. It does know some stuff, but honestly, you got to keep an eye on, and you've got to make sure you take the Facebook ad policy course. I have all my clients do that, so that you are like on par and you understand the policies so you don't get in trouble. But it'll put stuff in there that is not aren't compliant. So you got to have an eye for that and be able to see, things that need to be removed. And then make sure that your own brand is in there, and that goes back into like writing, having a brand writer or something like that. But you've got to make sure that your tone, the words that you use, what you may say in your business, phrases you guys use, have that in there, make sure it's in there. Also, I've already talked about this a little bit, is to make sure you do your editing. Like I said, I typically will do 10% to 50%. I had an ad the other day that I wrote. Was it an ad? No, it was an email that I wrote, and I rewrote 60% of that email. I liked some of the framework on the email, but I rewrote like most of it. But it gave me something that I could like, kind of update into context with the brand voice and how I talk. And, it sometimes will just keep repeating the same things over and over. And you're like, oh, come on, right? So it's really it's you I just, one thing I've got to emphasize, if you don't remember anything for today, is you have to write and edit. Make sure your brand is in there. Again, stories, I like to say. I'm gonna put my little drawing, I love this little drawing thing. your own voice, your own brand, specificity and proof. But it's like obviously testimonials, case studies, things like that, where you got, where you could say so and so, this happened to them, blah, blah, blah. But also telling your own story in there is really important. And when I have people write ads, just in general, when I'm showing them how to write the copy, one of the components is always a relatable, bringing it back to you and bridging that common point that you're trying to make. And then, make sure that it's not fluffy, which it will fluff. Like it will do the fluff. Even this, when I write my outlines for these types of trainings, I use a program called Gamma. I don't know if you guys have seen Gamma before, but Gamma is oops, Gamma is I first got it. It was a pile of junk, and I actually got rid of it. And I'm gonna have to make sure I bought a year subscription. I'm like, oh my God, I hate this thing. I really did. I hated it. And then I thought it's gotten way better, but you can take your outlines and make you this beautiful presentation. But still, I had to go back in and edit this thing. Like it was a little wonky in different places. But this is yeah, these images are uh where is the gotta make sure. Hold on a second. There's a whole bunch of slides here that are missing. Okay, I think I found them. Okay. Because I'm like, I've got some, and I wrote in the like different frameworks for you guys. But even this, I still have, I give it an outline and points I want to make, and then it puts it into the presentation. So I'm not formatting PowerPoints every week. I just finished a 400 slide deck that I had to create without AI. Like I had designed the whole deck. I don't have time to do like weekly training decks. Like it would take me all week. So I use this. Gamma is a great tool. I think I want to do one of these calls on tools because there's so many cool tools. I'm like a tool fanatic. I love tools. And Gamma, I've forgiven it for being bad. Because at first it was like, bleh, but it's gotten way better. This cool feature now, when you put it in, you can open it in the edit and then you can actually reprompt the images. And that came in about a month or two ago. And I was like, thank God, because the images were heinous. I was like, this is terrible. But like, I wish I'd go back and look at some of my early gammas. They were just awful. Oh, these early ones, these were 6 months ago. It's changed a lot in 6 months and it's done really, really good. But you could see, I've done many, but I think it's a great, if you're doing a lot of presentations, it'll give you something fast that it'll give you a good one. But again, you got to go back and edit, just like the slide says. Don't skip the editing, or you'll be like, what? Remember, you are driving the boat, right? So you got to go back and make sure that the your crew, aka the AI, is didn't write anything strange or weird or didn't make sense. So again, making sure that you've got all this stuff in there, your tone. So I've given you a little prompt here that you can look at and copy down. One thing that you do want to do is feed it rich text. The more context you can give it, the better. Um, the first piece you always want to give it is who your buyer is. And I mean like really detailed. Where are they from, age demographic, education demographic, family, like as much as you can do. Like when we do a standard avatar exercise, if you're one of my personal clients, take your avatar exercise and your symptoms worksheet and put that in here, like, and then give it that. Super important because it needs to know that, like, what's the problems. The second thing is you want to give it their pain and their goals. People respond to ads most of the time because they are avoiding a pain. You are a solution provider, you're not selling them stuff. So what solution are you providing that, to them? What's their goal? What's the problem in their life that you are the solution to? You got to write that in there. Really, like the number one thing. Everybody's like, I want prospects with money. Well, did you dial in this other stuff is really the question. Also, like, what is your offer? But you also need to be descriptive in that. Like, what makes you different than all the competition out there? What is the problem that you solve that don't other people don't? What is that thing that you need to convey to the prospect? Because when Facebook shows, or Meta in general, shows, and I just learned yesterday that Google, their algorithm is going to become very much like Facebook's Andromeda algorithm. Um, but when people are clicking on your ad, all of a sudden, if you've probably seen this too, all of a sudden, like, now we have all these other competing ads. Because if you clicked on one ad about like dog food, now all of a sudden you got 40 ads about dog food showing up in your feed. So people are looking at you and comparing you to the other people. So you've got to really like know like your competition, how are you different, things like that. And then your tone. Like, I have a very distinct way I speak. I want that to come through in my writing. So when you are prompting, you can say conversational, bold. Usually the prompt that I need to put in there is cheeky and sarcastic. And then sometimes I'll say make it even more sarcastic because of the way I speak. Most of it's flat, like you're reading a school book, right? And then you can soften the tone. Sometimes I'll say soften the tone, or make this energetic, or you got to understand how to write before you do this. So here's a quick example. um, Write a short Facebook ad for women over 40 who are burned out from chasing leads. They want consistent clients without the hustle. Promote a 90-day program that brings clients to them. Tone, cheeky, confident, no fluff. Keep it under 100 words. So that would just be like a little example. This is a really important thing. I'm going to give you 4 frameworks that you can actually prompt in. So ChatGPT is, basically a super smart search engine, and, aggregates information. So it knows these already because these have been around a really long time. So one of them, you can ask it to write the ad in the PAS framework. There's a lot more frameworks than this, but I wanted to give you the top 4 so it would not be too confusing. The PAS framework is the problem, agitate, solve. So you pinpoint a painful issue, and then you kind of like make them feel the pain. You agitate it a little bit. And what's the consequence if they don't fix it? And then you offer the solution. And the solution could be watch this, register to watch this, or click through, let's do a call, or something like that. So, what the CTA is to solve. So a PAS ad is a good framework to ask it to. You could take one concept and have it give it to you in these 4 different frameworks and see which one you like the best. There's the AIDA framework, which is the attention, interest, desire, action framework. You start with a really bold promise, or like a strong hook, and then you go into curiosity, you create emotional desire, and then you close with a strong call to action. So AIDA and PASS are 2 like top frameworks for writing ads in general. There's the before and after bridge, where you talk about the pain, like before what happens, and then like what's going to happen after they work with you. And a lot of times people now, the buyers are so much more sophisticated that we have to give them what we call timeline language. Like, what does it look like when they actually like work with you? First this, then this, then this, so you can add in like adding that into the before and after bridge would be helpful, but you could ask it to write and add, with this all this context, but do it in the framework of the before and after bridge. Okay. Another one is the four C's. And if you know me and you're a client of mine, this is not the same four C's that I teach when I'm working with you. But it's a little different four C's, but we love the other four C's. Clear, concise, compelling, and credible. So when you are writing, you add that in there. You can say, you can combine this. Say, I'd like to write this ad. Here's all the context in the PAS framework, but also include the four C's: clear, concise, compelling, and credible. And it will, you could combine these, especially that the fourth one, you could combine it with the other ones. So an example of this would be like write a Facebook ad copy in the PAS framework. I'm looking here at the bottom. I'm at the bottom right here. That helps a small business owner get better leads from Facebook ads. The audience is frustrated with low quality leads and tired of wasting money. The solution is a system that shows them how to target properly and attract buyers instead of freebie seekers. Make the tone direct, encouraging, and clear. Limit to 3 short paragraphs and no more than 150 words. And then you see what it gives back to you. And then you might be like, well, I don't know about that. And you might reprompt it and say rewrite. I will tell you one of the number one things that you can do with your ad writing is ask it to rewrite and make better. I do that all the time. Rewrite, make the headline stronger. Rewrite, make the story stronger. Rewrite, get rid of filler words. Rewrite with a stronger angle. Never, ever will I ever take the first generation. I usually rewrite it at least 3 times and then I'll pull it and do my own edits. Okay. So here's that one. Oops. Here's another, like this is the third thing, and I mentioned it a little bit about talking or training it to have your brand voice. There are some things you can do unless you're doing a formal GPT training. Okay, because having a GPT trained in your brand voice is invaluable. Like I just brought on a copywriter last week, to help me with synergizing my campaigns because I can't write the amount of emails that I need to write. And so I told him, I said, I've got a brand writer already. And I shared the GPT. He's like, oh my God, this is going to make my life so much easier. And I just shared the GPT with him, and it's got all my brand information. And so, yes. So you want it to be trained to sound like you. It's really, really powerful to do this. Some of the context in which you can give it, and you can ask it to store it to memory. Like I said, we're not going to go into brand writing GPTs today because that is hours. I'm telling you, it's hours. But you can say things like, this is how I speak. You can even give it transcriptions of your own. Like if you've got you doing an audio or a video, you can pull those transcriptions and put that in and, let it give it to you. You can also dictate into ChatGPT. You can dictate, right here is a dictate button where you can talk. Just say, this is how I talk. And you can dictate right in and it'll put it right in there. Sometimes that's glitchy. I just have to tell you. But FYI, it is handy. You could put your tone. Like I said, my tone is typically very bold and sarcastic, but funny. So I want it to be that way. But if you're writing like a science paper, you're going to make it data driven, right? It's not going to be bold and sarcastic in that writing. So you also want to create a style guide, which, like I said, that's going down towards the brand writer, but you can, give it your parameters and what you want things to look like and stuff like that. And then any of your outputs, you can, you know, what I will often do is when I get something back that I really like, I'll tell it, if I'm to recreate this, write a prompt that would recreate this exact thing. You know, you can ask it to create that prompt for you, and it's really interesting. And then save that prompt. I've got in my Google Drive, I have a folder that's just AI prompts. And it's like prompts that I've seen on the internet, prompts that I've written myself, and I've got them all in a Google Drive. And then I can share it with any of my staff really easy, these prompts. Some of the prompts I've written, some of the prompts are ones that I'm like a couple people I followed, you know, and they're really good prompts. So there's that. And then one of the things is unless you train your own GPT, you start out with your, you know, having a little brand voice, you know, outline. And like I said, you can enter all that in and you can have ChatGPT say, please generate a brand voice that I can use, a brand voice paragraph that I can use when I'm writing other pieces of content for this brand. You know, you can have that. So, like I said, custom GPT is a whole thing. Like I said, it was like 3 hours when I walked everybody through it. So again, even you can even start with just generating and creating a folder with your favorite prompts in there and ask it to make you a prompt so that in the future you can recreate these results. So a little bit, you know, thing that you can do, like a little extra bonuses here are uh, like headline generators. Like I said, write 5 Facebook ads, add headlines with curiosity and urgency to buy whatever it is you have, or to register for whatever thing, or to get whatever bonus book or whatever. Here's your audience, and keep each under 30, 40 characters. That would be like a headline, you know, a larger headline, even for maybe a lander page. But if you're going to do it for the actual ad, you're going to have to make it like 6 words, maybe 7. But I usually put it in 6 or 7 words. And if it starts to get too long, I'll redo it for 6 words. You have to really be clear on that. Um, your full ad structure you can add to your prompt is write a hook, short story, call to action for whatever it is you do. The hook should stop the scroll, the story should build desire, and the CTA should create urgency. So this is a little more you can add in when you're engineering your frameworks. Your video script, turn this into a funny 30-second reel script with a pattern interrupt opening, and then you can put your ad in there. Or you could take your ad. Some of you, Deborah, you have written ads that are really, really great. And then within that ad, there are like multiple ads within the ad. So you can ask ChatGPT, take this ad and generate, you know, 10 or 15 different reel ideas or post ideas, or you know, like we will do retargeting ads or engagement ads that are just meant to create audiences and, you know, brand awareness. And it'll do that, you know, it'll totally do that. Also you can change your audience for this. Like if you're like, I'm not getting the quite the right person I want, you can just take the ad and rewrite for a higher income buyer. Um, that it's more about saving time than the price, or you know, make it more sophisticated. Or I did a whole writing with one of my offers that I went after a certain individual and wrote it. I rewrote the entire thing with a certain avatar in mind, and it did. It started really attracting that individual. So, you know, this here is really, you know, the one of the a very simple introduction to this. I wanted to help a lot of you that just wanted to get started. It can help you write faster. It can help you be more efficient. It's not a shortcut to using your brain. And I will warn people, they've shown in new research that people that rely on ChatGPT too much are actually experiencing mental atrophy. So, I also believe it's very important to write your own ads just because it keeps your brain working. Like they have shown severe mental atrophy or brain atrophy. Like their brain, it's like the circuits are like um uh atrophying. It's the word, you know, like because they're relying so much on ChatGPT, their neural networks are not, you know, as prevalent as they were. So be very careful with that. There are some people that live and die and that's all they do. And I love these weird bizarre blueberry berries things that his thing generated. I thought, man, that's those are the most ridiculous berries that the AI generated for this. But I'm like, they're kind of cute. They're like blueberry clusters that don't exist in real nature. Um, Also, this is a tool for multiplying what works. Just always remember that. And then, just use it like this. Hopefully this will help you quite a bit here. And, if you're not already, and most of you already are, but if you're not in the school, make sure you're in likes2leads.com/school, and you can message us over there. And if you've got any questions or you want to talk to us about being a client or you need some help with some specific things, just message us through there and we can set up a time to chat with you and rock that out and help you get this going. So I think there's a couple things in the chat here. Let me look at this. Definitely need to rework my audiences. Yeah, I know. Oh, Diane, you are welcome. Let's see. Yeah, the regular four C's, right, Patty? The four C's. Okay, cool. All right. Well, you guys, I hope this is helpful, especially if you are newer or even if you're a pro. I mean, like those frameworks, I think are really, really helpful. Oh, good. I'm really glad to hear that. This is super, super good. And Deborah, in your materials, the mastermind materials is to how to train the brand voice. So it's in there, but it's going to take a couple hours to do, but man, is it worth it. Wah! Like rainbows and unicorns come out of the sky once you get that thing done. And like I said, I'm thinking after I get this new project launched, which, like I said, we're at the date, like we got to drop it. And Patty, same with you. That brand training is in there. It's at the bottom, I think, of that area. But I might offer that as a small workshop um, on a I don't know, monthly, bi-monthly basis so I can help walk people through doing their brand voice training. Or maybe I'd have somebody do it. Because it's a series of steps. Like it's a lot. Like you're creating these massive, like you have it interview you and all this other stuff, and it is really cool. If you guys would ever be interested in that, drop that in the chat. I'm just curious. My clients, my current clients, have that. Um, it's really important. So, all right, everybody. Well, let's adjourn. I always my goal is to make these a half hour, but they never wind up being a half hour because I'm just like I want to make sure you get the good stuff. I could easily talk for days, and that's just how it goes. But I just hope this was really helpful. You're welcome, Ruth, and I will see you ladies next week. And get busy on your GPTs, getting this thing writing, use those frameworks. I'll have the recording up, and I'll be emailing that out and texting it out so you can have that and go back and get some of these if you didn't get them the first time. All right, we'll see you soon. Bye bye, everybody. Bye.